Now, at first glance, it might seem like the question, what do you want, is a trick question because you actually want more than one thing. For instance, I want to be physically fit. I want to be 10% body fat at 180 pounds. Okay, that's what I want. I want to be so physically fit that I have the energy to say yes to the requests of my wife. I have the energy to say yes to the requests of my daughter. When my daughter says, let's go play, let's go swimming, I want to say yes. When my wife says, let's go hiking, I want to say yes. I have historically said no because I've lacked the energy, the physical energy to say yes to those requests. And I realize that saying no to those requests has hindered my fellowship and my connection and my intimacy with the members of my family, the people I love the most. So I want to be physically fit so that not only can I say yes to those requests, but I can initiate those activities and I can take my family out. That's part of my dream. And so I want to be physically fit. I want to live so far away from sickness and disease and illness that death is far from me. I want to be physically fit. I want to be 180 pounds and 10% body fat. I want that. I really do want that. But I also want, right now, at this very moment, to gorge on Oreo cookies and whole milk. I also want, at this very moment, right now, to go to In-N-Out Burger or Five Guys and get the biggest double cheese bacon burger I could get and the biggest order of French fries I can get and a chocolate milkshake and down them right now. I want right now at this very moment to get an extra large mushroom and sausage pizza from Round Table and become one flesh with it. So I want more than one thing. And we get confused when we ask questions like, well, which do I want more? Which do I want more? And then when you feel like you've failed at life change, you say things like, well, I guess I wanted this more than I want this. In actuality, this might be helpful. There's actually two different wanters on the inside of you. I call it two selves. I don't mean that you have a split personality, but I mean you have two different modes of thinking, two different logicians on the inside of you, and there's two different logic trains. Within you, there's the wise self and there's the foolish self. Okay, follow me in this. See if this makes sense to you. The wise self wants what is conducive to long, happy, joyful, connected life. But the foolish self wants only tactile pleasure. So there's three different kinds of happiness, okay? I believe we were created for joy, but there's three different manifestations of joy, okay? Three different levels of joy, I'd say. The bottom level is pleasure, and the type of pleasure I'm talking about that we experience at the bottom level is the kind that's obtained through the five senses. An aroma fills the air and you smell it. Something beautiful appears and you see it. There's music playing and you hear it. There's something delicious and you taste it. And there's something tactile and you touch it. Pleasure enters the soul through the five senses of the body. So pleasure is tactile, it's physical, and it's immediate. Pleasure is the most accessible. You can taste it, touch it, feel it, hear it, see it right now. And especially in the world that we live in, it's infinitely available. The second level of joy is meaning. And meaning has to do with drawing significance from what you produce. So whereas pleasure is tactile, meaning is symbolic. So meaning is when your work, for instance, means something. It's creating something that is of greater value than the sum of its actions. And so the quest for meaning typically takes the form of success, vocation, career, climbing the ladder, acquiring the accoutrements of wealth, productivity, creativity. All of these things are designed to build meaning. And meaning is a higher level of joy than pleasure. That's why people will actually deny themselves pleasure in order to obtain meaning. But the third level and the highest level of joy is communion. And communion is the state of oneness enjoyed by two persons who are intimately connected to one another's worlds. Two persons who have united themselves in heart and in love and intimacy. It's not the same thing as what you would experience in collaboration. Collaboration is at the level of meaning, where two artists come together to create something and to produce something together. That's collaboration and that's meaning. But communion in the natural, the greatest picture of it in the natural is when a husband and wife truly make love. I mean, a husband and wife can just have sex. But when a husband and wife make love, that's an example of communion. When it's a connection not just of the body, but of the soul and of the mind and of the heart, when the connection is emotional, mental, psychological, physical, when all of those things come together, the experience is communion. The core of our hunger and thirst for communion, and all of us hunger and thirst for communion, is an experience of oneness with God, in which He is in us and we are in Him. And we experience that oneness, that communion, that mutual abandonment, where I abandon myself to Him and He abandons Himself in me, where I give myself fully to Him and He gives Himself fully to me. Now, already you've figured out that communion is the most elusive and pleasure is the most immediate. We tend to opt for pleasure because the thought of pursuing communion is just so exhaustive, because it takes so long and who knows if I could ever get there, right? It just seems like this huge barrier that I've got to overcome. The wise self lives from the perspective of communion first. The wise self prioritizes communion over meaning and pleasure. The foolish self prioritizes pleasure over meaning and communion. And this is the key. What does living out of the foolish self look like? It looks like addiction. How about living meaning first? If you prioritize meaning over pleasure and you prioritize meaning over communion, it looks like workaholism. But if you prioritize communion, then you're always thinking relationally. And if you pursue communion first with God and then with the people who love you and that you love, meaning and pleasure are added to you as well. It falls into place. It follows Matthew 6:33, where Jesus said, "Seek first the kingdom of God and His righteousness, and all these things will be added to you as well." The reason we struggle to make life change is because that foolish self and you want to understand the foolish self, read the book of Proverbs. One of the characters that's all through the book of Proverbs is the fool. And another character all through the book of Proverbs is the wise man. The thing you got to realize is the wise man and the fool are both you and me. But we have to wake up every morning and decide not to be the fool, not to play the fool, but to be the wise man. And the wise man prioritizes communion. And so if we think of it that way, the why is elevated to a higher place. This is the highest place of joy. This is the highest place of satisfaction that we could ever enjoy in life, is living lives of communion, perfect communion with God and with our loved ones. And if we can do that, we've fulfilled the greatest dream that we could ever have. The question that I want you to ask yourself is, how do you situate your dream for your life that you've already articulated? How do you find your dream within the priority? How do you prioritize communion in the pursuit of your particular dream? This is where we begin to hone and purify and develop the dream that you started out with. Maybe the dream was just no more medication, no surgeries, no bypass surgeries, no early death from heart disease. But maybe the dream now is walking my daughter down the aisle on her wedding day, growing old together with my wife. That when my wife's body is old and frail, that I can be the one to be there to take care of her physical needs. Prioritizing communion. How about if I can break free of this habit, I can enjoy unbroken fellowship with God. Maybe this is the thing that hinders me in my walk with Christ. Prioritizing communion. It is the pathway to the greatest source of joy that you can ever experience in life.